to come. So this may be it. I'm not sure about Janet or Sarah. I'm optimistic this will be a very short meeting. So uh, we can probably go through things fairly quickly. Why don't we start just with a roll call? So Kevin,
Here.
Marty,
Here.
Mish.
We can't hear you.
Okay, I get it. She's present. Nina,
Here.
Simone,
Here.
and I'm here. Great. So first order is we have two sets of minutes that we haven't approved yet. I have the 24th and the 31st down as having been circulated but not actually approved. So Simone distributed, I believe in. I got no comments back. So are there any comments today on the minutes? Welcome.
I believe they look good to me.
Same.
All right, great. So why don't we vote first on the 24th? So I'll go through a roll just to accept the minutes. So Kevin,
Yes.
Simone,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
and Mish.
She's getting her headphones.
Okay. All right, we'll go on without her recording a vote on this one, and I vote yes. So for the 31st, again, no comments by email unless, are there any comments this evening? All right, Kevin,
Yes.
Simone,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
and Mish. Still not.
She's still looking for.
Still looking for. Okay, and I'm a yes. All right, great. So at a rather brief agenda, the first thing I wanted to do was spend some time just talking about the Blue Book process, and while it's fresh, and get people starting to think about how we both how we could improve the Blue Book as a document and think about how the process might work better. So I know everybody has looked at the Blue Book, but comments on the Blue Book as a document first.
It's a very long document.
It's a long document.
And thank you for all the hard work that
Yes.
you guys put on this. It's like really impressive.
It was very educational.
I
Although
bet.
not all of it was educational.
I think for someone like me who for the first time went to a town meeting last year, the Blue Book as is still miss like the overall context of what happens in those meetings. Like I absolutely didn't understand how the whole thing would work. Even reading the Blue Book, you kind of like you read, but you don't really grasp what happens there. But even like what I learned after the fact of the meeting about the budget process, that the budget comes after the town meeting. I think we should explain this to people. And I still think that if people realize that not showing up means that whatever's decided there becomes the budget that then may affect their taxes instead of the other way around. Right. I think it would be very helpful as a general concept for a town meeting. Like I spoke with people outside Dover who also don't understand what happens in their towns. right? And when I explained to them, they were like, "Oh, I'm going to start attending town meetings." So I think it's a way to make people understand better the process.
Yeah. So one thing I did learn is that the print run for the Blue Book is 2,370, I think, copies. And or the and that allows them to mail a copy to each residence in town. They don't order more though to be available at town meeting and that sort of thing because they go to the post office on the day that they're delivered and they pick up all the discarded Blue Books. And that gives them several hundred Blue Books that they can then use to distribute at town meeting and have available in the townhouse for distribution. So it's obvious that a significant percentage of the town gets the Blue Book and immediately puts it in the trash.
Yeah.
I would say that
What?
part of the, like, even if you read the content of the Blue Book and like right in the beginning when it says bring the Blue Book to the meeting, it doesn't really explain why you should bring the Blue Book to the meeting. So maybe there is a way to make more interesting, to get people to read and participate, for that matter, because and I also wonder, like, because we sent one per household, I can tell you that this happened here in my house before. When we got the Blue Book, my husband would look and say, "I don't know what this is," and trash it. And then I was like, "Where is the Blue Book?" And it's like, what is a Blue Book?" And my husband, he doesn't vote. He has a green card. So in his mind, he could not connect that this is an important component of what happens in town. Right now, he knows he will not discard the Blue Book, but I wonder also how many people don't even see the Blue Book just because it comes, in a bunch of other things. Someone get the mail and.
Sorry. It seems that if the point of the Blue Book is to help prepare people for town meeting, then it would be more effective to eliminate the mailing of the book altogether, but we could send for example, like a postcard with a QR code, have all the information online, even if it's in like a magazine format online. And you could also put like at the town hall, at the town center, a banner that had the QR code, people, and just have that be more available, and then have paper copies, at the library and the community center and places like that if people wanted a hard copy. But we don't need to, most people could just scan it on an iPad or on their phone and then we'd have more ways to provide like interactive tables and things that are just much more useful. If it's really to say, here's the research, if you want to learn more about this article, here's the research, here are the meetings where it was discussed, here's the background from the committee that proposed it. You know what I mean? Then we can give them without actually printing it all into a book. It could just be lots of links, and just there's so much more opportunity if it's digital for useful information, I think.
Yep.
And easy to bring to town meeting. Everybody's going to bring their phone or an iPad.
Right. So one of the things that struck me as I was going through it this time is that there are really two different portions of the Blue Book. One portion are the articles and the kind of the statement of the article, the warrant committee synopsis of the article, and our recommendation, and that's a significant chunk of the Blue Book. The other chunk, though, is the warrant committee report, the report of the capital budget committee, I would say to some extent random tables and figures that get put in, demonstrating different aspects of town finance. So there's there's definitely one aspect that addresses the warrant and recommendations by the warrant committee about a voting at town meeting. And then the other part is educating people about town finances and town governance.
Right.
And I have to tell you that having read over the warrant committee report and read over the capital budget committee report, I can take credit for to some extent for the warrant committee report. They're both almost incoherent. So they're not,
What?
they're to some extent incoherent. They're not well written,
Oh, right, right.
not I would say a lot of numbers are present, but not a lot of kind of information. Rob.
So I have a couple of comments. So first of all, you know, just to react somewhat to Simone's comments, I would like to remind everybody that a mailing was sent out on March 17th, which is a new thing that basically it's a one pager. It looks like this.
Yeah.
Was sent to every household, and it gave people an overview of the process of the open hearing of the annual town meeting. You know, the issue we have is we cannot force people to read stuff that's mailed to them. You know, this was a new addition. Those people that did look at it, you know, we have gotten positive feedback. There's always room for improvement. With respect to the Blue Book, I think there are many statutory requirements, so you can't get away, you know, so certain things have to be in it. I think what is important to the town is the warrant committee's recommendations. Those have always been important to the town. I would say that many people come to town meeting without reading the Blue Book. You know, they have no idea what's going to be discussed at town meeting. I think most people do understand that the budget gets approved. I do believe, though, there is room for improvement with respect to the various reports of committees. I agree with you, Woody. They're very poorly written. It's a last minute thing and people just update the numbers. So I would certainly appreciate maybe having a task force that meets in the beginning of the summer that actually reworks the Blue Book and creates a skeleton that just then gets populated. I think Mish's idea about interactive tables, it works for those of us who are computer literate. We get many residents that don't like the fact that things aren't mailed to their home.
Right.
So it's a battle. So I think we need to sort of do, like, for me personally, I would much prefer to have a PDF version of the Blue Book.
But Robin, couldn't we do both? Couldn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Right,
I assumed that we would just put on the postcard some, I mean,
Yeah.
if we could do this, we didn't, if
Yeah.
we could put in the postcard, would you like a hard copy? We'll send you one, we'll get you one.
Right,
Well,
right.
you know, or you can get them at the library, you know, so we
Right.
could, I get that you'd still need a paper copy, but
Right.
you might not need to mail paper copies to everybody.
I know, and that, you know, and that's what happened with the town report. Fewer and fewer and fewer people actually want a copy, but then, you know, we've been doing office hours. One of the things that comes up is some people really miss all the stuff being mailed to their house. So, I mean, you just can't win. I mean,
Yeah.
the other thing we could try thinking about, because, you know, many young parents that I've talked to, they do everything on their phone. They also listen to podcasts. So is there a way that maybe, we utilize or try out some of this newer technology? Maybe some of the more meaty warrant articles, you can do a podcast so people can listen to it. I'm just thinking out loud here, but maybe, I would think this task force could start to think about how do people get information and just try some new ideas and new approaches. So those were my comments, but I certainly think it would be worthwhile to look through the blue book and see what changes we can make to improve it.
Kevin.
Get an easier read.
Yeah, that's a great idea, I think, actually, like a podcast summary or something, or just because, and so, yeah, I know, Woody, I guess I've always, when, like some of the companies I've worked at in the private sector, like there's always information being distributed, and like we would always say, like there's the analyst level version, which I think is almost like what the current blue book is, and then there's the executive summary version, right? And I almost feel like a companion executive summary that really started to hit home what Simone mentioned, because that was news to me. I think for the first half of my participation on the warrant committee, I was like, well, when are we going to get the budget that we have to work with so we could start horse trading on what we want to spend money on? It's like, no, it's like if everybody voted for everything, then we would just have to fund it. Like it's completely backwards. And so I think somehow or another, if we were to kind of hit people over the head with like, you know, like, do you want to buy a fire engine? Do you want to buy a new oil tank? Like, this is your dollars. Like, come debate what we're going to spend money on. There's something along the lines that got people aware of the fact that like they have a voice in what's going to happen.
Other thoughts?
The other thing I'd say, I do feel like it disproportionately fell on you, Woody, to write to the bulk of the writing. So I didn't feel like, I felt like I wrote like 2 paragraphs or 4 sentences or something. So I didn't necessarily feel like I contributed a ton, but
I didn't mind that this year. That wasn't the part that was onerous, and I think is something that wasn't something that could actually be distributed, and is something we need to really think about. Is just going through proof after proof and correcting, doing the formatting and that sort of stuff. That seems a waste of our time. And a lot of this stuff probably could be done well before the last minute. So part of what became challenging is that we were the budget numbers weren't all done.
yeah,
Printer needed a document. Every time I gave it back to him, it would come back with something new that I would find incorrect. So there was a lot of that sort of back and forth that seemed unnecessary. And I do
Yeah.
think that Chris has talked about the possibility of bringing some of the production of the Blue Book, making it internal in the future, and that might be something that would make this process easier. And I do think there are a lot of things that could be done well before the last minute. A number of the articles really don't require last minute adjustment of numbers, and could be kind of put in place well before it goes to the printer.
Yeah.
There's the production part that I think.
right. And I had one other thought too, but I guess I almost feel like it would be great if every department had like a standard budget worksheet that they were working off of, almost like one Google sheet with tabs along the bottom, and it was the same plug in the numbers the way, so that there was like almost one standardized way for people to kind of consume what they were saying. Because I felt like every department did something slightly different.
Yes, yeah. I do think in a number of ways, the process was this year was actually more manageable in the sense that uh, we had a an outline of the budget in the middle of January, which is well before things were put in place like that in the past. And so we had something to work off of, and we were able to consolidate the presentations of the department heads to end of February, early January, or early March rather, when we were further into the process and things were more kind of finalized in terms of the numbers that they were presenting. So I think there were some things like that that worked better. And I also think that there are ways to continue to streamline things. Let me keep going. Marty.
I think Simone and Michelle, Mich will be before me. Simone, you want to go?
Marty.
Oh, I mean, you can go ahead, but
All I was going to say, Woody, is I completely agree with you that at the end, it wasn't so much writing things, but it seemed like you were going through fire drills in terms of trying to get the final information from various parties, right? And you were up against a deadline in terms of the printing. But this whole conversation about the process and the blue books, this is not unique to Dover, I assume. All the surrounding towns have this same process. And I'm curious, maybe Robin's the most experienced one here on this whole thing. Are there any lessons learned or processes that have been streamlined or things that we can learn from other towns that seem to do it better, if there is such a thing as better than what we're doing?
Oh, I mean, there's certainly tools, software tools that maybe we could leverage. Like for instance, public companies, all of the regulatory documents, you can feed everything in using certain types of software. So, I talked a little bit to Chris, about whether or not we could think about streamlining it. There seems to be a lot of duplication. So for instance, if we had, Google Sheets that were prepared by the town that automatically uploaded through a software package. So those are the kinds of things that we can look at and look at the costs. We could also go, Mike certainly knows how it was done in Easton. I think other towns, the staff does a lot more than the finance committee. And as we begin to staff up, I think that will be something more that we will be able to do that. It's definitely a goal of Chris's. So I think I also think that maybe a different printer
Yep.
would be a better solution. You should be able to just it shouldn't be such a production. So that's the other thing. Is there another printer that we could use that might make it a little easier?
So is this a printer that actually has like a printing machine and as opposed to the more modern way of things?
It's been 15 years, maybe even more, since I've been on Warrant, and it's the same guy and his wife.
He says
And
he's done it for 25 years.
Yeah, and he used to harass me back then. As a matter of fact, I would go to his shop and make corrections there because it was the only way at the end we could get things done. So we would be changing numbers there and make sure. So, it was sort of typeset technology. I don't know if he's changed it, but I'll tell you, it was a lot less expensive than some of the other ones. But it was the same thing. He needed all this lead time, and then the stuff you got back wasn't that great, and you had to spend a lot of time proofing it.
Yeah, there's got to be better printers.
Right. So that's something else we should look into. I think there are a whole slew of things, and I would include Chris Costello as part of the task force
Yeah.
to see what what tools are out there to make this process easier for us. And I think a lot of it should be controlled by the town, especially all of the tables and Article 4.
And you say
And I
that's,
think makes it a much easier process.
is that all statutory, those tables that are in there that Woody was referring to, where we're not quite sure why they're there or what they mean?
Right, and that should be part of the task force. We should look at some of these tables and say, does this make sense? Like I remember years ago, there were a couple of years we had overrides, and I was on Warrant, and I said to people, please come to the meeting. We have an override. And they looked at the blue book and they said, where is the override? Because, it wasn't obvious that you needed an override to get the budget passed. So, I think we should just look at all of these tables and see if we really need them. What are we trying to convey here? It's like, this is the budget. This is the town's tax revenue. And these are the things we're asking for. I mean, that's what we're trying to get approved. And then we have all the other articles that. But if you look at blue books of other towns or their finance committee books, they look very similar to ours.
Same printer probably, huh?
No, I think some of them definitely have better printers. I was surprised we were still using the same printer. I mean, I still remember going to his shop and sitting there and saying, this should be a 5.
Yeah. I mean, in my former life issuing bonds, we had printers like that in the day,
Right.
but it's all changed now and it's very competitive. The prices come down and it's much faster, and it must be the same with this blue book, I assume.
Right, I remember back in the day when you went public, you sat in a room at the printers making changes to your registration statements.
Yeah.
Now you sit at home at 2 a.m. changing the dilution tables. So.
Nina.
Oh, I can lower my hand. Just a quick thought. I think for a lot of the townspeople and for myself, especially before I was on this committee, the awareness of the capital budget, or the major expenses anyway in the capital budget, I had, no awareness of, say, fire engine costs or the island. And I think those are the things that concern the townspeople, when they see big numbers. So I don't mean to minimize the other articles or the rest of the warrants, but there's some way in which townspeople can be aware of the capital expenditures that we're needing to make, and then the future ones. For me, as a new member, it was eye-opening. And I think it might help people just understand, at least how the budget works on the big ticket items. And I think maybe some part of the, for lack of a better word, disinterest of a lot of people in town is that they don't really focus on smaller budget items. So just a thought on, I don't know how you could do that exactly, but some education on capital expenditures that keep the town moving and progressing in the right ways would be really helpful, I think.
Yep.
I don't know if that can be done in the blue book, but.
Simone.
I want to tag on Robin's comment about like podcast and so forth. I think one way to approach this was also to see if we can get some folks from high school, because it will be difficult to get like young parents to do that. But if we find those kids in high school who are interested in, government and this kind of activity, to actually host a podcast, or even like go beyond that and have like some interviews on Instagram, like those short reels that you can use on Instagram or TikTok. I don't know if we have TikTok, but I personally, I don't have TikTok, so I'm like the worst person to talk about about this. But the truth is that these people pay attention to what is out there, and if you are pushing the stroller, you can hear this kind of of information while you are doing this. But also the high school kids could initiate the conversations at home when they are with their parents. So there's a lot of potential for education on different levels that actually kind of like guarantee a sustainability of engagement of the community over the years. And the last piece is they also could be very helpful in the coordination of this kind of like streamlined process that Robin was mentioned that I think that it's very much needed. Like when I mentioned during the department's presentation that we should have like a template for the presentation, like the template of the presentation should fit the blue book, right? But if you get someone presenting a Word document, the other one comes with a spreadsheet, the other one comes with nothing, the other one has a PowerPoint, it really becomes like a nightmare to consolidate everything. In every company that I've worked before, you have a budget template and you have to deal with that. You can, add a little kind of poetry to it, but in the end, you have to stick with the template and make sure that it's a coherent message across all the departments that will just then be on the blue book or whatever.
I love that idea also because we will have a future Warrant committee members who will be all educated.
And that would be great. It's a tough curve that we get when we join
Succession
the
planning
Warrant
already.
committee.
So I love the idea of doing something that will target will potentially leverage the high school students and target a younger population. One of the things that is striking as you sit on the stage at town meeting is that the attendance at town meeting is distinctly age skewed relative to the town, the population of the town. So, it's the reality is that if you are dealing with, a career and kids in school, the ability to devote 3 hours to town meeting on a Monday night is not always that easy. But so it's not surprising that the people who end up having the time to go to town meeting tend to be people who are older, retired, whatever. But it'd be nice if in our educational efforts, we are able to reach out to the entire population of the town. And we may not be able to get a younger population to come to town meeting. They may just not have the time. But at least if they were informed, they might be able to make a choice about whether it's worth it to them to come to town meeting.
I know you can't vote without being present physically, but is it ever streamed on Zoom so that people who don't have the time can at least listen in if they so choose?
It is streamed on Dover cable television.
Yep.
The Commonwealth, they are looking at ways. I mean, the issue with having it on Zoom is voting, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, you certainly get much more engagement if people can sit in their
Come and
homes.
vote. Mm-hmm.
And that's why towns, I mean, there are different kinds of town meetings. That's why, like Needham has a representative town meeting where you get voted to attend town meeting. So
I don't know if, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if it's allowed, but could we also, like when we have the town meetings, offers, like those spaces that you drop your kids when you go to IKEA, for example, that young families could bring their kids or, like whatever age range that kids could come and stay there while their parents are participating on the town meeting.
That has happened in cases where, there were issues that impacted the younger generation in the town or the schools. So when the Chickering School and the middle school were rebuilt, those town meetings were on a Saturday and babysitting was offered. The same was for the rail trail. You know, so there have been instances where there've been really big issues that impact the town, where town meeting has been in a morning or in an afternoon, and or babysitting services have been made available. But the issue is on a Monday night when you start at 7, I don't know that anybody wants their kids there at 11 p.m. So
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I'm not a good example because my kids would be up to 11 if
right,
they had to. But I think it like at least would give the opportunity for some of them to consider taking the kids. And I understand that, everything can change at the last minute in the town meeting. New voting can come after we thought that it was a done deal.
right.
But I don't know if people start seeing the dynamics and understanding the challenges, if they could start making plans in advance, for that matter, and be a little bit more engaged. And I think like we give a good leadway when people know that the dates and so forth. But there's a lot of, and maybe the podcast / social media would be a way to keep people more motivated to attend and show up for the meetings. The other part that I get slightly concerned without enough data, but just based on what I've seen, is how much can Chris take? And I know that we have
He's
the
getting
head of
an
HR.
assistant. Well, we're hiring somebody else. So
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't have the data to say. It's just like it concerns me that I see always like adding more on Chris plates, more and more and more, and I don't have the data to say, well, he can't do everything. But maybe the task force will be very helpful and we can make things easier for everybody. I just get concerned that eventually would be, everything on Chris's shoulders.
Well, it's not just Chris, it's Chris and Mike, and we have a skeleton crew there right now, and they're doing everything they possibly can. But what's critical is this additional employee at the Board of Selectmen's office who will be able to take off of Chris's plate a lot of the communication efforts and allow Chris to really grow professionally, because he came to us as a communication professional, and really our goal is to keep him and have him grow. So this new position in the budget would be somebody that would take away a lot of the busy work from Chris and allow him to do some of this more exciting stuff, which is in the form of improvements. We are getting more and more committees that need the townhouse support, and we simply don't have the staff to do that.
Right, great. So, excuse me, I would encourage you to think more about this and spend a little time reading the Blue Book again, just to kind of get a perspective on it and write down some of your thoughts. If you're particularly interested in being involved in the effort to revise the Blue Book, let me know. As Robin said, I think it's something that should start this spring and probably extend through the summer and into the fall, with the idea that we have some idea as to what the changes are that we're hoping to make by the early next fall, so that we have enough time to actually implement things.
Right. I think it would be really helpful if this task force could have a skeleton new form of the Blue Book ready by the end of September.
Yeah, I think that's a great target.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So just a few other things that I wanted to mention before we quit. So I'm not scheduling a meeting for next week. I'll probably schedule one for the week after. The next official meeting before the town meeting is the moderators meeting, which Jim Rapetti starts to choreograph town meeting. That's coming up at the end of this month. So, but I think we probably should meet once before that. I would encourage, I'll send around a link. I would encourage people to actually look at a video of town meeting just to refresh your memory as to what goes on. It's what our role is at town meeting. You don't have to listen to the whole thing, but it's useful. For example, Robin did a nice presentation at the last town meeting on the town finances, or I guess it was the 2023 town meeting.
Pam did an excellent job last year.
Yeah, and Kim did a great job last year. So I'll send around the links to the town meetings. It's worth looking at that. I'm anticipating, so one of the roles of the warrant committee members is to read and make the motions for and second the articles as they're voted on, before they're voted on. I'm anticipating that we'll probably just assign people the articles that they were responsible for, but I'll let you know kind of as we go through things how that's going to work. We have two members. Janet and Cam are both done this year in terms of their service on the warrant committee. Jim Rapetti has identified one person who's potentially interested. Gavin Koo has been a Dover resident for 12 years, I think, and has a background. He was at Bain Capital, is now retired and is looking for something to do. So he's interested in exploring a position on the warrant committee. Hasn't decided yet whether how interested he is. But Jim is definitely looking for other names. So if you have other people that you know that you think would be good candidates and might potentially be interested, you can either email Jim directly or let me know and I can forward them to him. I wanted to, I think we should probably continue to do some self-education over the course of the next year. So I'm looking for topics that might be worth reviewing. One topic I thought I personally would love to hear someone talk about is municipal debt, and so that we could understand that a little bit better. If you have topics that you think the group would benefit from hearing about, let me know, and I'll try and identify somebody who could potentially work on it or present to us. I anticipate that we'll need to meet, have meetings not every week, but at least intermittently into June, because there are occasional financial things that come up that we need to approve. Most of those would be relatively short meetings, but I anticipate we'll continue to meet into early June, probably take a break mostly for July and August, apart from any work on the Blue Book, and then reconvene at the beginning of September. We do have potential for additional town meetings this year that, and we may end up having to take a position on things. So that's another kind of wild card, just in terms of what our activity is going to be as a group. I guess that's it for me, unless there is other business people want to raise. If not,
So Woody, just one thing, I would suggest that maybe you and I meet maybe
Yeah.
next week and just kind of coordinate presentations.
yes, yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'm happy
I
to
just
go.
want to say that actually the community center tour was phenomenal.
Great.
For those of you who missed the
Oh, right.
opportunity, don't miss the next opportunity. It was really
Yeah.
like amazing.
It was really spectacular. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a game changer for downtown, to be honest with you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Great. And a second.
Okay.
Simone,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Janice. Is that a yes? I couldn't hear.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Mish
Yes.
and Sarah.
Yes.
And I'm definitely a yes. Okay, so probably no meeting next week, but we'll probably meet the week after.
Okay.
All right, great.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.